remember the last page of Ehrman's book? What does Ehrman say on the last page that I drew specific attention to? He says that the Bible has a timeless value, which I would suggest reinforces the Bible's authority. He doesn't say the law codes of Hammurabi have a timeless value. He doesn't say that the secret book of John has a timeless value, but he says the Bible has a timeless value. Avalos would come in and say, I think that Avalos would say, look, when you say that, you're reinforcing the authority of the Bible. You're making it seem natural that people would obviously turn to the Bible for life lessons, and that we should continue to turn to the Bible for life lessons. Now, let's review. You guys had 2 readings from Avalos, right? You guys remember me saying there were 2 readings? The first one was part of this review symposium of Prothero's book, and the other was selections from the intro and conclusion to his book. Let's start with Avalos on Prothero. To begin with, Avalos doesn't think biblical literacy is a bad thing. For him, he's like, Avalos is the sort who would read Prothero's book and say people are illiterate about the Bible, and Avalos would be like, good, I'm glad they're illiterate about the Bible. He sort of thinks that we should not take it for granted that illiteracy about the Bible is automatically a bad thing. He challenges that. In addition, he suggests that illiteracy is basically how it's always been. Throughout the history of Western civilization, where Christianity has been the dominant religion, people have, as a matter of fact, been illiterate about the Bible. The idea that you should be literate about the Bible, he says, reflects which sect's ideal?
Protestant.
Right. He says that's a pretty Protestant idea. For the most part, in the history of Western civilization, most people never read the Bible because most people couldn't read. And nobody seemed to think that there was a problem with that. If your priest read the Bible, that was good enough. In addition, Avalos points out that people still today don't really seem to know much about the Bible. He's like, yeah, duh, of course, nobody ever knows anything about the Bible. And the idea that you should know something about it is a Protestant ideal. It's Protestants who say, oh, everybody should read the Bible, everybody should read the Bible. And that in part follows from what Protestant doctrine did I talk about last week, I think. Protestant doctrine that focused on the Scriptures. It was a Latin phrase. Anybody remember? Sola Scriptura, anybody remember what that means?
Wasn't it scripture only?
Yeah. Scripture only or Scripture alone. The idea for Protestants who said this, and this is an exaggeration, Protestants didn't literally think this was a slogan of sorts, that, look, you don't need the Pope, you don't need the Catholic Church, you don't need to go to confessions for priests. What you should do is just read the Bible for yourself, and you can figure out for yourself what it means. Now again, this is not what people like Luther literally said. This is an exaggerated version. But in Protestantism, we get this emphasis, you don't need the Catholic Church. You can go and read the Bible for yourself. Which is an idea that would go with the idea that you should be literate about the Bible. It's Protestant. central to his argument is that this focus on biblical literacy perpetuates the authority of the Bible. I said this before, I'll say it again, right? You can't take a class on the Quran here. You can't take a class on the Lotus Sutra. You can take a class on the New Testament. And the fact that a class on the New Testament is offered that's focused on that one book alone sends a message that this is an important book that you should pay attention to. The mere fact that you can take classes on this single text by itself perpetuates the idea that it's an authoritative text that should be listened to. Even if it's not taught that way. Even if I came in here and told you from day one to the last day of class that the Bible is a terrible book and you should never read any of it, the fact that you can still take that class that focuses on that book reinforces its importance in our culture. And let me ask this question. How many of you have read some Shakespeare before? How many of you have read Shakespeare for fun outside of any class that you've ever taken?
I read it outside of class, wasn't it? Fun.
So, a half? How many of you read bits and pieces of the Iliad or the Odyssey by Homer? Outside of class? 2 there? Yeah? Right? Why do people still read this stuff? Because there are college professors and high school teachers that say, oh, this is important stuff that you should listen to. And Avalos is asking, why do we do that with the Bible and not with other books? Why don't we offer a class on the Law Code of Hammurabi? Why don't we say, oh, you guys should really be studying the Law Code of Hammurabi? Instead of what would Jesus do, you should wear bracelets that say, what would Hammurabi do? Why aren't we focusing on that material and focusing on this instead? Well, for him, in doing so, it perpetuates the authority of the Bible. Nobody, well, not nobody, hardly anybody would read Shakespeare if you weren't forced to read it. It only retains its authority in culture in part because people keep telling you that it's important. Avalos thinks that to some extent, if college professors stopped teaching people that it was important, it would decline in importance. Now, obviously, he doesn't think 100%. It's not like Christians would just automatically stop reading the Bible if it was not offered in college anymore. But I think that there's something to what he's saying. Ehrman suggests that the Bible can be used, this is the Bible can be used to justify or legitimate good or bad things, right? Was the Bible used to justify slavery in America? Yes. Was the Bible used to criticize slavery in America? Yes. Was the Bible used to support Nazism? Yes. Was it used to oppose Nazism? Yes. Ehrman says we can use the Bible to justify just about anything. If it can be used to support anything, you never know what you're going to get with it. Why not just reject its authority in general?